Hey, Jonathan here. Let's go ahead and generate the 2D CAD as we are learning 2D CADing from 3D model basics for architectural design in Archicad. Let's do it. Alright, so using the file provided, we should be able to profit from whatever was possible for us to do as a 3D model to then generate a 2D CAD that is up the standard. Now, the idea behind this is that you don't feel the pressure to model something perfectly, but that you use the 3D modeling tools as a design process for you to train yourself in 3D modeling. To illustrate a little bit the level you should have, we have here a model that was made from one of our students. In that way, you can see there's a couple of common mistakes, that things are not looking perfectly well, which is excellent because that's exactly what we're expecting right now from you after having followed the modeling basics. But it is important for me that you're able to use this 3D model as a basis to generate the 2D. So let's get to it. We're going to start with the floor plan. To go to the floor plan, we are going to go from the project map, we're going to go to the ground floor. And here, as you can see, the windows are not nice, the walls are not cutting properly, the stair is not really nice. All that we should be able to draw on top of it, but I don't want to start a drawing from zero. So that is the point of this exercise. All right, so I want to explain the file that we provided. First of all, we're going to get the folder number 2, which is this one we're using right now. We are generating a 2D CAD, which is really not nice, but we need to start from somewhere. And then let's CAD, we're going to go back to this chapter later on. So inside here, we are basically generating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 worksheets where we are then later going to draw in CAD later. And then we also generated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 automatic views from our bad 3D model to then be able to trace it. So that you can follow me right now, I'm going to generate a new folder, which is live exercise. Okay, and I'm going to start replicating all this here, which you should try to do the same. So here we're going to start a new folder called my trace references, which is essentially, I'm going to show you how to do this folder over here. And then I'm also going to generate another folder that's called my worksheets. You should do the same so that you can work then here. All right, and these two are going to work as an example for you. Now that we are on the ground floor, we can then make sure that the floor plan cut plane is properly done. That is under document, floor plan cut plane. And then here we're going to set up the cut plane height to 1 meter, which is always should be 1 meter. Then we click OK. And then this one, I'm going to select my trace references here, select the ground floor here, make sure that the pens are correctly, and then I click on Save View. This way, this floor here has been pushed over this one right here. All right, let's keep going. Next up is we're going to generate the worksheet for the ground floor. Now to do that, I'm going to go to Worksheets, right click, New Independent Worksheet, and I'm going to say my ground floor. Here, right click on the ground floor, and I want to say show as trace reference. That way I can see the ground floor while I am on a worksheet, which is just a 2D piece of paper that you can use in Archicad. Now, to make sure that we have something here, we're just going to draw a polygon around the house so that we can actually generate a layout at the end of this exercise. We click on the polyline tool, we keep it on the 301 construction lines, and then the pen can be whatever pen you want. And then we're going to have here 1 square, 1, 2, and then we have the house here, meaning that when I turn off the trace reference, I still see something that I can then lay out properly at the end of this step. So now that I have my trace reference and I have my worksheet, which is this one, 4.6, we're going to save. I'm going to click on my worksheet as well so that it lands here, and then I click Save View. Now, this is also an excellent exercise for you to exercise and come and understand how project map goes into view map. This is something that you can do it wrongly a couple of times, but eventually you'll catch on because we're going to do this 5 times together. So if you didn't get it this time, let's go in the next one. Let's keep going. Next up is first story. So that we're going to start again by going on the project map to the first story. We make sure that the settings are correct. And then we're going to select my trace references here. And then I save the view. It goes from here to here. Now that it's in my trace references, I can then generate a new worksheet from the project map, right click on worksheet, new independent worksheet, and we're going to call this my first floor. This way, you know that every time any one of the worksheets says my is the one you did. And those should be the ones that you're actually going to draw on later on. Let's keep going. Now that I have it, I can right click on that trace reference, which is the first story, show as trace reference. I should see it. And then again, now I'm going to start the polyline and draw a square around it so that I know where the house is going to land once I'm finished drawing. Once I have that polyline, I click on the folder of my worksheets, and then I'm going to move this one here, save view. Bloop. Then I have this one. If I go back to my worksheet before, then it also, notice how it also gets saved with the proper trace reference. The trace reference gets saved into the view, and that is really, really useful. Let's keep going. Okay, so now that we have the floor plans, here comes the crucial part for you. We're going to go to the trace reference, ground floor, and here I'm going to do a screenshot of this because this is the time I need to be able to print this out or with your tablet and think about how I want to represent this. Where are going to be the 4 line thicknesses we've been talking about with 4 colors? So for example, I can start thinking that I know that my wall should be completely thick in this line thickness, which represents this color. Doesn't have to be precise, it's just like an idea of how everything should be drawn. And here, for example, I'm going to go in a little bit for the door. Think about how you want to do the door. For example, the door should be thin here, and then even thinner here, for example. So this is a concept of how you want to draw in 2D that you want to be sure to prepare. The second one is the windows. For example, the windows, I want to make sure that I draw the windows like this with the indent. And then on a different line thickness, do these 2 guys. And then again with a different line thickness, these 2 lines. So this is again a concept that I need to think about how I want this 2D representation. If you're a little bit lost about what am I talking about here on the detail, make sure to check the PDF of the finished drawing that we provided for this particular house so that you understand that it's not about Archicad drawing for us. It's always going to be us telling Archicad how we want to draw. So we don't have any future in automated drawing techniques if we are not sure how we would draw this. And that is the part here that it's crucial. You have the model behind you to tell you where the windows are, to tell you where the doors are, to tell you which wall is which thickness, and to tell you where the house stops. But the 2D drawing, a CAD, a architectural floor plan, has a really high bar of understanding levels that we have been accustomed to throughout our professional careers and academic careers. So don't miss this step, and you should see the way we thought about this finished, this drawing. The same thing we're going to do in the first story. We're going to generate a screenshot that we can print as paper to do this exercise with, or if you have a tablet, you can do that as well. So here, again, we're going to go with a different line thickness and think about how am I going to draw this guy over here? How am I going to draw the kitchen? How do I want to see the stairs? How do I want to see the line of the terrain? If it's necessary, do I see this top? And this is, when we finish this thinking, this is the way it looked. So as you can see, there's the color code that we use in our Archicad. It's still there. So when you're CADing, you can use the color pen for you to be able to follow this properly. Now that we have our both worksheets, when we come back to CAD, we're going to have that printed next to us. And then we're going to be using the pen color. And that way we can also see the 4 lines with the 4 different pens that we set at the beginning, which are 241, 242, 243, and 244. So now that I have this here, I can start picking up that parameter and start drawing with an incredibly good playlist for hours on end, happy because I know where I'm going. And we're going to generate a section, which we did now here with this particular marker right here. And if you want to do it yourself, at this stage, I don't want you to configure a section marker. Take the one we use. Basically, the markers are hidden here under viewpoints. This is a section tool. You can pick up the favorite B section or in the 3D Johnny, on the 3D Johnny folder that we're providing. Or if you want to see how hard this is, you can go ahead and try with anything else. But for now, double click on B and then notice how you have S01. If you go to sections here on the project map, you see S01. And when I draw one here, careful, through the window, we pick a side and now you get S06 here from this one. Meaning that this is actually showing you this drawing. So first of all, we need to move this all the way to the back so that I see the rest of the house. I'll say this in the example. And then when I double click on S06, we are generating the drawing from Archicad. Now that we generate this, this building, I can change again the pen set, or actually, now that I think about it, it should be in colors. The trace should be in color. Nah, not really. Why not? Or whatever. Now that we have the section, we are now going back to my trace references, and then I click on Save View. And then I get S06 building section that I'm going to use as a trace reference. To where? Again, to a worksheet. So I move into Project Map, Worksheet, right-click, New Independent Worksheet. We're going to call it My Section, Create. And then we can now right-click on that reference that we just did, right-click on S06 from My Trace References and say that I want to be shown as a trace reference. So it should appear somewhere here. And now to make sure that we can set up our layout anyway, we're going to draw up a polyline around it. Now I'm going to change the geometry method to actually make this possible. More or less. Very good. And now just to get an idea where everything lands. Good. Now that I have my worksheet ready to be CADed, I'm going to click on My Worksheets on the right side, on the View side, and click on Save View. And then I'm going to have my section here. Remember that you can always check how close are you to what we did by double clicking on the twin brother of that view. For example, my section has a twin brother under worksheets here, section. They should both be the same. And under trace references from us, you should have the twin brothers of each and every one of your trace references. So you can check what you're doing, if what you're doing is correct. All right, let's keep going. Now that I have the section, building section, I'm going to do the exact same exercise as before. I'm going to do a screenshot, print this in paper or using a tablet. And then I'm going to start thinking about where I want to put my terrain. All right, this is like this. I actually want to draw it like this. And then, no, not like this. And I go back like that. And I start imagining where is my terrain. So in this case, it's going to be here. Now, not here, not here, and not here. And that is a decision you need to make without the pressure of having to use a mouse or having to use a new technology that you don't know about first. That's why the pencil is very important this stage, where you get a clear-headed, what do you want to draw? What do you want to draw? The same goes with a different layer or colors to how do I want to draw this windows? Is it a two? Do I do a big frame and then another frame, and then here do I put the glass line? Do I don't? Do I do this? Do I do an extra line? Do I do the wall with a different thickness as the window? Am I cutting to the right place? If I'm cutting into the wrong place through a furniture, it doesn't matter because I'm drawing the plan at the end, so I can just draw the line where it should go. It doesn't matter that all these lines are weird and bad. Or if there's a door missing, of course, I can just draw it myself. All right, so after thinking about all this, like how the roof should look like this. where everything is thought through in all the peacefulness of you and your pencil before you start fighting with a new software that you don't know anything about. Good. Next up is the elevation. Now the elevation, again, we're going to start it from the ground floor. And the same way as the section was, you need to set up a marker for it. Click there. So let's go to B elevation, take it from 3D Johnny, double click. And then I'm going to do an elevation that doesn't exist yet. Elevation, here we have the standard ones. They just come with the software. So you can use each and every one of these. But I want to show you how now there's 4. And when I draw 1, click 2, and I pick the side. Click 1, click 2, and I pick the side. Then I get an E03 elevation. Okay, I think in our case we used the north elevation automatically. We just moved it around. That also works. But here it's important that if you do generate it, notice the difference of these 2 lines. It needs to be readable what we're doing here. So for that, you need to select it, and these 2 lines, you need to push them behind the house, both of them. I'll explain more about them. Now we're going to go and see what that elevation looks like. We double click on it, and then we see the automatic generated facades. As you can see, there's many mistakes, and this is not something that you can just give in, but the first lines are there. So you can concentrate in the quality of the drawing and not where everything should be. That comes everything from the model. So let's go ahead and do the screenshot again, this. And then here we start thinking about the important subjects. For example, the terrain line, like that. We can also start thinking about where the windows, how am I going to draw the window? Is it going to be 2 or 3? Is it going to be 8, 8, 8 or 6, 6, 6 around it? Am I going to do a doorknob? Am I going to draw this with just 1 line so it looks nicer? How am I going to represent these guys? Look at the shadow, we can use it. What is this roof looking like? Am I going to go like this? Or like that? Or like this? Think about all that, right? If you don't want to right now, well, this is what we did. And as you can see here, there's a good approximation of what we actually want to draw once we sit down to draw this properly. Now that we have the section, we want to save it as a trace reference. So we click on My Trace References, and we click on Save View. And we have the elevation right there. Next up is to do the worksheet. Right click on the worksheet, New Independent Worksheet, and we're going to call it My Elevation. Enter. Then, as we are already accustomed by now, we are going to right click on the elevation from Trace References folder that we just did and tell it that we want to be shown that as trace reference. You can see here, this is it. I can now draw the polyline of the roof and the one from this one here. I'm going to set these 2 polylines to be the background to be transparent so I can see through it. And then I'm going to, by selecting my worksheets folder, I click on Save View, and it should just move right to it. All right, last up is going to be the perspective. Now for the perspective, we're going to go to the 3D view. And here we're going to move around and get a nice perspective of that first area just by using Orbit, Pan, and Zoom. You can also go to View, 3D Navigations Extra, Look to Perpendicular of Clicked Surface. Click on that one, zoom in, and using the Pan tool, moving it a little bit around. And then we should have a good starting point. For this particular view, axonometry, you can also go right click, projection settings, and change the view cone to 85 in case you want to see a little bit more of that space. It's basically just changing the aperture of that space. Now we can then go to F4 to isolate the model. Then we're going to select the category of 3D documents in Project Map, right click, and you want a new 3D document. And this one is going to be My Perspective. Click OK. And now you'll get this really awful drawing that I would never give up. But all the lines, the perspective is already done. So I could just basically thinking a little bit about which lines should have which thickness. I can then be very, very efficient in me generating the drawing that I want. For example, I want a specific line weight for the lines that are behind, and another line weight for the lines that are here. I can also think about these should be the same lines, and now that I think about it, this should have this every so often. And then here we're just gonna get the little tab here so that I know that I can wash there. And maybe here, back here, we want to do the kitchen. Maybe the kitchen is looking like this with another line, or maybe I wanted to do a lamp coming down, or add the framing, who knows what else. Or maybe I can do a little bit of the meadows that are behind. Like, this is the time where you think about what drawing you want to do. This is the one that we thought about. And as you can see here, there's a coherence between the colors picked because the colors mean line weights, and line weights are for us crucial. Done. So all we have done until now was generate this trace reference that I now have, of course, to save it into my trace references as we did before. So let's go here to save view, and then we get it. Now all that's left is to generate that last worksheet and call it my perspective. Click create. Then here I'm going to go right click on the my perspective trace reference, right click, show as trace reference. Once I see it, I'm going to use the polyline tool to generate that square so that I know where everything is. And maybe add a couple of more lines just to make sure that I know what's going to happen when I'm doing layout. You'll see what I mean later. And then we can then save this as worksheet. We go to save current view, my perspective. The most important part of this process is to be able to take time to understand what you want to draw, what's going to be the level of detail of your windows, how are you going to represent each and every one of these doors. Maybe the first couple of times cumbersome, but eventually you should have your own graphic for it. Chances are that you already have. So this is the moment where you transfer that knowledge into this software. So that's it. I'll see you in the next one.